So this week, Thanksgiving is coming up, and it's coming in the middle of a whole lot of tension, present, and also just kind of a congestion of buildup of tension that we've had the last couple weeks. So today, I'm here with my twin, Leroy. Hi, Leroy.
Hey, how are you?
Good. We're the twins of Tug of Heart, and today we're here. If we can get through it peacefully, we'll see, because we're also quite capable of being unyielding. But we wanted to try to talk about holiday yielding as a very plain idea of how to just kind of holiday survival. Did I understand this right, Leroy, what you meant by it?
Yeah,
More than
yeah.
survival, though, right?
In addition to more people being on the road and obeying all the street signs, yielding included, yes, you did get that correct.
And I think the place you were coming from, correct me if I'm wrong, was also that there's this new thing. I mean, families have always fought. Me and you've seen a couple trees knocked down before ourselves, right? Um, in over festivity and under festivity, I think both. Um,
It wasn't until later in life I realized that some people actually put them up after Thanksgiving, and they stay up
we would like,
until.
okay, I'll say this part. Coming up, we used to lose our Christmas tree, like, I don't know how many times before Christmas, because my mom took that tree down and put it up. She took it Christmas away from us like 12 times before we got it. The what's the song? The 12 days of how many days of Christmas is it? The 12? On the dun 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 dun. The 10 days or 12 days. That's how many days we lost our tree. Anyways, on top of all the traditional and family arguments that go on, introducing in-laws and trying to manage how they get along, if a person prays like you, if this one cooks a drier turkey than the other, now we have this additional pressure of people being very strong and vocal about their beliefs. And there are families completely divided. There are families who refuse to get together for the holidays, or they do the whole who's going to be there, and they have to arrange it based on kind of like thinking. So Leroy, you're gonna have to kind of kickstart us here, because this idea came from you. What you thinking?
Well, I think that one of two things. Either as I get older, I'm just more tired, which I'm going to try and spin and masquerade as wisdom, when really I'm just exhausted. But, and maybe there's something to
You're
be said
yielding in
about that.
fatigue.
What's that?
I said you're more yielding in fatigue. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what you said. Um, I think as I get a little bit older, I start to think of how many people I've witnessed pass, people that I won't see again. So then I was thinking, well, we're heading up to the holidays, and we are fractured beyond what I've ever witnessed, and politically, um, generational. I mean, we're it's natural. People are living longer. We have more uh, access to information. We have podcasts. We've got Skype. We've got FaceTime. We've got email. We've got text message. We've got snail mail. We've still got smoke signals. But as we kind of bring people together, let's kind of think about what happened last time. We talk about these trees coming down, and we can't be the only ones. And if we are, this is going to be a really awkward conversation. But
I just scribbled on my thing.
yeah, scratch that out.
I just
But as we kind of, get closer to the holidays, think about what happened last time. What was memorable? Was the most memorable thing from our last get together an argument, an over enthusiastic participation in the libations? I mean, I don't know. So we gotta think about like how can we get that smoother? And we can't speak intelligently, or we can't manipulate another person's behavior. No matter how enthusiastic we are for things to go perfect, people are people. But what we can do, when I say we, and I'm talking about you, Lori, I'm talking about me.
Oh,
I'm talking about something to consider for other people. What we can do is yield. And I'm not saying forgive. I'm not saying forget. I'm not saying that you have to give a win over anybody during the holiday season. I'm just saying yield. Yield doesn't mean stop. Two totally different street signs. Yield, stop, examine, proceed. You know, that's all the yield means. And we talked a few episodes back, Lori, about that momentary pause.
Right.
And this is kind of the same thing. This is that yield. You know, so as we go into the Thanksgiving, what we all want is we want everybody to have just an experience that they walk away from and they lean back with their fat pants on and they say, man, that's what it's supposed to look like. I don't know. That's kind of that's where I was coming from when I thought about this.
Yeah, and it speaks to coming back to what we recently talked about too, and tempering the will. You know, people say temper. It's a little sing-songy suggestion to your will, and we have to remember that will is our faculty of choice. That's the one thing we have control of in anything. We have the choice to engage in a fight, to say something that we know could be a potential trigger or hurtful, or to not be able to resist. An untempered will may not be able to resist that last word because it's just so perfect and you think you're going to win. What will you exchange for that? And one of the things and this sounds like it's really to each his own way is beautiful, and I accept that. But for me, when I am not sure what to expect in a situation, I can generally ask myself one thing that'll kind of get me into the heart, and that's like, no matter what unfolds there that I can't see right now, do I want good in this moment? I only have to answer for me. So when we're talking about the heart, we're not trying to negotiate or orchestrate negotiations among different people. This is an individual job, and it's only for the person who maybe hears and thinks, I do want this for me, because we would never be able to reorganize the dynamics of other relationships. But what you can do is think about who you want to be in that moment and what you want to bring. You have an armful of gifts. That is not nearly as important as the kind of like vitality and energy that you bring to this gathering. And one of the things that you said, Leroy, that just strikes me tremendously is you, and this is in my own way of saying it, you never know if this is the last time that you will experience the presence of another person there, no matter who it is. And what choice would you want to make in that? I mean, it's not like we're trying to raise the odds because people don't know how to do the right thing in just the mundane. But what would be the difference, right? All the more if they have a long life ahead of them, all the more to treat them with some yielding, hoping that gives to them a type of inspiration or at least enjoyment in that moment. That's such a good gift to give, I think. So as far as practicality goes, where to begin, Leroy? I'm going to ask you, start right at the hardest stuff, because what if I don't want to? Or what if I think I can't?
So I think, Lori, as we sit here and we talk about tug of heart and things that tug at our heart, and I'm listening to what you're saying, and I like what you're saying, but I think we have to think about massaging and looking after our own heart. And
Aw.
you know who yielding's good for?
Hmm.
The one yielding.
Oh, you're right.
You
You're the
know, it's
one.
like other people. We can't yield as a way to manipulate. You know, like, but while it does serve as a great example, you know who yielding's really good for? The one yielding. Because you
Right.
know what? You're sparing.
You're
You are
preventing
sparing
yourself
your
getting
own heart.
rear-ended.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
It's probably best you didn't. I said you're sparing yourself the rear ending.
You are sparing yourself. When you yield, what you are doing is you are taking a momentary sabbatical from whatever it is, that would be problematic in a familial dinner get together, but yeah, that's what I think. And as we kind of look at this from a standpoint of um, healing, which is something we talked about not so long ago,
Healing?
and then healing, we talked about healing,
Okay.
and then in the last episode we talked about Seth, and I wrote a little something for Seth, and in that in the closing of that little piece I wrote for Seth, I acknowledged that Seth, he gave nothing any more time than exactly what it was due. He struggled with just an impossible task of staying upbeat, but he didn't give anything, whether it was patience in learning to tie his shoes, or it was just enthusiasm for a game. It's like you smash your finger, you can sit there and let it ruin your day, or you know what? Get the throbbing to stop and then go about your day. And that was Seth, And so give nothing any more than it's due. And that's kind of where the healing comes from in yielding for me.
I like that,
For me.
Ray. Sorry, I'm just writing this real quick. Give nothing more than it's due. And the thing that you're saying about healing is so tremendous. And when you talk about Seth and then the sabbatical, because it is an inside job, and it's about you and what you want to give and receive in that moment, or that gathering or whatever that the inspires, I guess, the type of yielding. And I think when I think of times that I've seen like tense at gatherings in the family or outside the family or with other families, there's always two people I notice when things have just made the wrong turn, and you're just kind of are like, oh boy, here we are. And you kind of know when it's headed that way. I always tend to notice the one with the highest degree of aggressiveness, and I also noticed the calmest. And it's good to have that counter, if nothing else, because something about seeing the two of them, it's not that one cancels the other and gives a balance, but it's it each serve as a type of model. And when you are presented with both, the choice who you would want to be becomes pretty clear. Because the thing is, it's not at that point, if you've gotten together, there is some value, some intrinsic value about being together that you've already identified and showed up for. When you are unable to yield, and so you just kind of go without that pause and just go forward with whatever you have been repeating. And so now when this is said, I react like this. When this happens, I react like this. And you're going to just go for that routine, no matter what. You're making the choice in that moment to say, of everything that we thought was good and sacred to come together. And I say sacred in that only in it meaning set apart as a time together, a special time reserved for us. But you have decided that your little spiel or whatever it is you say, it becomes more important than the total of everybody else present right then. And I'm not being bossy and saying that people should do this, but for myself, I would weigh that in, I think, to see, like, does my need to go and not yield override the well-being of everybody here and the sense that they're going to have here and leave with? What do you think, Leroy?
I think yielding. I have a little different execution.
Tell me. Oh my gosh, I'm picturing that lady on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, me too.
Yep, I had a little different experience here.
I think if you show up and you make a pledge to yourself and you say, I'm going to stay quiet, I'm okay. I'm the time and energy that I spent in a spirited debate with family. I missed out on a lot of things. The kids playing, the grandparents, the elders. I could have been taking more pictures. I could have been shooting video. And that's all good. But have you ever heard somebody say, just smile, makes them wonder what you're up to?
I know. If I need, it's got to be from you.
So, like, if you really want to, make some notable headway, just yield, because they're gonna be like, "What's going on?" They prepared for a battle that didn't even arrive. Who's the winner there?
Right.
You just kind of like, I'm gonna just yield, and they're like, wait a second, I brought notes. I spent time. I'm ready for this. And it's like, okay, yeah.
It's funny. Have you ever seen this? I'm picturing now. Have you ever seen a person, anybody who's ever worked any type of counter or service, anything, has seen the person? Just imagine, if you can, whether this was the setup of the storefront or not. Just imagine from that clear glass, you see them already slamming the door, awkward, walking awkward, and just coming in. They came in to fight before you had a chance to make them mad. Have you ever seen that? You know what I'm saying? The person that's like,
yeah.
And you're like, oh, I didn't even get a chance to do wrong by you yet. I've actually had people do that in sales, where they've come up to me with all this, blah, 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 and I'm like, hey, that's back up, come in again. If this is what you came in for, let me do my delivery first, because you're having a fight that doesn't even exist. And I think what you're saying, when you go in yielding and smiling instead of what they anticipate, you are disarming. Because no matter how they packed for that fight, they overpacked. And one person has the power to do that. Right?
For sure.
Just by not engaging.
The other thing is, we talked a little bit earlier, or a few episodes back, about our will.
Right.
And our will can't impede another person's will. And another thing that's just alarmingly, I say alarming because you can tell I've got some experience with lack of yielding, but
I wasn't going to mention it. I wasn't going to tell you.
No, you can. I'm comfortable at this point in my life.
You're a strong personality.
But when you yield and they come in and the whatever is coming, and I mean, apparently we're talking about our family. I mean, we might be the only family that's like this, but
no,
it gives you just an amazing opportunity to like really hear what they're all about, which maybe you've never done before.
Yeah, actually, I can remember a friend, and she'll know who she is. And she would tell me,
Tanya.
Huh?
Hi, Tanya.
She would tell me little things about the family, and I never really saw it. And I remember the first Thanksgiving I was there and the meltdown happened and it turned into blame and this and that and your family's a bunch of this and your family. And near the end they were like, Lori, we're sorry. I don't know why we did this. And I was like, oh, no way, no way. Today I learned I am among family. Thank you. And you can also just like, I was like, I know I'm cool with you and you guys like we've reached that level. That's irreplaceable. Like that was a very tender moment for me because I'm like, aw, I really am in. And so you don't have to be so troubled either when you do witnesses sometimes. Sometimes you're just like, we're cool like that, right?
Yeah, that's yeah.
But I had thanked
For
him.
sure.
I had thanked him because I was like, no, how else would I know how comfortable we've all become together? Um, but peace is still a pretty decent option to go for in gathering. So Leroy, so the next time you and I have the temptation, let's talk practicalities here, where I say something and it's just grinding and grinding. Can I expect you to take that pause? I'm saying it's as if it's me, but what if it's no matter who it is?
I generally consider the caliber of the source of the grinding before I.
Are you? What does that mean?
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll yield.
No, actually, you've become, and see, I don't know because what do you think? Is that something that comes more with age? Because you're definitely much more gentle now than at your peak aggro, we'll say. I can remember you had the peak and then came down over this last, I would say, decade plus. But so is it just something like accept people's seasons or?
I think seeing people that, especially people that are polarizing in view, in opinion, seeing them has helped me to better understand, solidify, and sometimes change my own belief. So, I mean, in the last 10 years, I enjoy it. Sometimes I do it for the comedic value. Like, I'll just sit there and yield and, you know, listen, my wife has a retail store, and there's many times I go in there for whatever reason to help out a little bit, to play salesman or whatever. And I love, which is weird, but I love to deal with people that are angry.
I do too. It doesn't bother me.
I love
I don't
it.
seek it, but I don't mind it one bit.
They come in and they're going and they're going and they're going, and maybe that's why this topic is up. No, this topic is up because the holidays are coming. But when somebody comes in and they're just full of energy, I let them just like go until you see that point. Usually it's like the third trip around the same information that I step in because there's only so much. They only prepared so well. They didn't plan on being there for an hour. They just kind of had all this and they kind of throw it out and then they throw it out a second time. And by the third time, I like to step in and say, is there anything that I can say next that will solve this? Well, and then they have another little bout, which tells me that no, they're just mad. And so but I appreciate them. I appreciate their view. I appreciate their enthusiasm for what they believe, and they felt for whatever reason that they were wronged, and sometimes it's as simple as we don't manufacture that, we distribute it, and I'm here to replace it. I'm here to contact the manufacturer. I'm here to talk to me. What can we do? And as soon as you get onto the same side of the counter, so to speak, you kind of diffuse it. So a lot of it in there is yielding, because you'll notice that people, when they start getting into spirited debate, which is what I like to call it, also known as arguments, when people get into arguments, you notice that the voices start to go up. And they start to, let's add an octave this next go round. You know, they get the tempo picks up a little bit, the volume goes up. And if you yield, it's like they can kind of get it out. And how many times have you seen somebody, you just let them get it out and they heard themselves get it out? And then you ask them, can you repeat that? And it's like, well, now it kind of sounds silly, you know? I don't want to repeat it because it was so silly. Yeah. But I think that just taking that little break, you know, and again, the yielding isn't necessarily for the other participants.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
It's for ourselves.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and I'm going to add.
We deserve to just enjoy the holiday. We got nothing to prove. We already know who they are. They know who we are. You know, Lord, you are what you are. And I'm okay with that. And if you feel you're right, I'm okay with that too. Because secretly, I like knowing.
See, but
that
my
you're
experience
walking
with you
around.
tells me that's like sarcasm. You win.
Had you
win
had you
as you see it. I can only hear that aggressively because I have like too much experience.
nearly 50 years of listening to me, like, how can that be?
No way.
The truth is,
I want to say something about what you were just talking about, because I was scribbling my little notes here about the spirited debate. And then I'm going to tell you about a friend that I've learned a lot from. There's what we see when somebody is just unloading or just releasing, let's call it. One of the things that can help a lot, I think, if we're just talking in terms of my yielding, not like a general advice for everybody's going to try this together, is that when people say something, no matter what your thoughts are about it, one of the most true things I think you can do is take them at their word, no matter what you feel about those words and what it might mean if you said those words. When I say these words, it can only mean this. Don't. Just think of what they're saying. A lot of times when people repeat the same stories or even just like the political talk, and they really want to rehash it a lot, it's an expression of their feeling kind of powerless in they lack the ability to influence what's happening. So they talk a lot about it, and they need that debugging. So be it. Or they feel unheard in general. And the other thing is that they're genuinely hurt or fearful. And that is due some respect or at least some reverence for their situation, if that's it. Now, I have this friend, you know Debbie, right? And when I don't, you might see it different because it's a little different with you. Like you're my sworn frenemy, right? So it's a little different.
mm-hmm.
But generally, like I don't think I'm like a big complainer or too much on the side of worry and stuff generally. But when I do get a little bug, I will say something and then repeat it and then, and usually once I've said it the first cycle and I'm entering that second of saying the same thing, it's been said. But I had learned this from her actually, oh my gosh, it might even be like close to a decade ago. So if I would be like, oh, and this happened and I'm going on, and she would listen so patiently and kindly and lovingly, and she would just, oh my gosh, okay, yeah. And then when there was a pause, if I would have one, she'd be like, oh my gosh, so much. Let's talk about something else. That's a lot. And that's all she would say. And from her doing that, however many times she did, it is something that I always forget to do it. But when I'm mid saying it, she had said it enough in our interaction that once I've said something so often, I myself will now add it where she might, where I'm going on, and then I'm like, oh, whatever. Anyways, let's talk about something else. And by her consistently doing it over time, I kind of adopted that same interjection. It's not a judgment. It's just like, it's the truth of the situation. Like, this isn't making us happy. Let's talk about something happy. And it really works. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever learned. That's all.
No, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. What you're referring to and what she is referring to, or how I'm reading it, is, again, yield for your own good.
Of course, her and I got into it a while back, but we're good. That's the other thing, is that you have to, speaking of that, when we do get into an argument, one of the things I am going to tell you that is tremendous consolation for me, and I think sometimes it does make it easier for both you and I to have permission to yield without crying uncle and feeling like we've lost or anything like that. When I fight with you, the one thing I'm sure of is my relationship is safe. There's not, I don't believe there's a point I could reach where it would be the undoing of us. And I think when people do part ways, maybe sometimes it's just having the heart or courage or whatever it takes to tell somebody that. So say you've been not having holidays together because you don't think you can manage it. Maybe somebody just calls somebody and is like, you know what? No matter what we feel, our relationship is a priority, and I would not dissolve that because of anything that you believe. Now, if your situation just is that's where you're at, I don't necessarily have advice for that, except to just think about, I guess, whatever the issue is and your history with a particular person, and if that history tells you they are what you would measure as good or bad or worth having, maybe spend some time really contemplating who they are to you and who they have been. But because of our relationship, I think even if there was a little bit of non-yielding, I would give you that leeway, and I think I have it. And that's a big comfort. Do you think so too, or no, with us when we argue?
I think you and I have landed in a really good place, and it's not without just a lot of happenings. I guess I'm inspired to yield, and oddly enough, I don't even see it as yielding. When you're not comfortable with who you are, you have a much more difficult time. You have to, behold, here I am. This is my opinion. You have to declare your existence.
Here's Lori and her opinion. Opinions.
Why so many seats at the table? Well, one's for you, and these are for your opinions.
Minions? No, opinions. Okay, enough.
So getting back to this, Lori, something that is so matter of fact right is what they say about suicide.
Ooh, what's that?
Suicide is a permanent remedy for a temporary problem. And we have to think about sometimes, if we fail to yield, are we walking into a relationship suicide?
Oh my goodness, Leroy, I love that.
Are we, if we fail to pause, not forgive, not forget, not hand over a win, but if we fail to yield, are we putting ourselves in jeopardy of a relationship suicide. There it is. That's it.
That's
Because we don't want to let our abandonment of yielding lead to a relationship suicide. It's like, wow, because it's temporary. Chances are you're going to see him next time. But around this time, you know, we're talking about Seth, and we're talking about the anniversary, and we're talking about looking after, you know, senior members of the family. And we don't know when that's going to be. Would you take that chance? Would you place that bet? Would you gamble? Would you roll those dice? No. And that's a tough place to be, but you never know when that could be a reality. I mean, I think about Dorothy. I mean, you and I, you know, you left New York and I left Florida and we flew to New Mexico and we were there at a time, but I mean, like, how lucky was that? You know, how many people don't get to, you know, administer triage before the passing of a loved one? How many people don't rush in and, like, you know, bandage up all the wounds and I forgive you and, you know, you forgive me and, like, okay, we're good. And somehow, no, I mean, it's like, that's a reality every single day. And
Right.
so as we look to Thanksgiving and it's turkey time, why is it turkey? I mean, I get why it's turkey, but there's, I'm thinking to myself because I'm not even that fond of turkey. But we're going to have these get-togethers, and I think that if you, Lori, and if I can exercise a little bit of responsible yielding, I think it'll just kind of start to become a way of life. You know, it's funny. You do something once, you're like, yeah, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Do it a second time, like, pretty soon, that's just the way you operate. And that's probably where you and I are right now. We just kind of, we go, you are what you are. You've got a lot of stuff in that head of yours. And you got a lot of opinions, and you do, and you live the way you live. And I look at you and I'm like, whoa, one sarong is good, but why do you need 12? You know, well, it doesn't really matter. It's because you're a good sister. You're good to me, good to my wife, and I'll give you that. I'm actually excited about yielding.
Me too. I'm going to end this by telling you one thing. I won't give any details. Do I have permission to share a instance?
Absolutely.
So this is actually about Zaina. There was a time we all had a pretty good gathering, and there was a little tension between you and Zaina. And that's all I'm going to say about that. This is Leroy's daughter. And I remember she came and asked me, like, what should I do about this? Like, what will I do about this? And her focus was really on you. And I remember telling her, like, I've known my twin forever, so I already know how he will go about this. So I can only tell you from that angle. And I told her, the fact of the matter is this, Z, you will be on the other side of this before you know it, just like that. Because your dad is your dad, but nothing ever is ever like permanent, and it doesn't take a long time either. So I said, you're going to be on the other side of this, and your dad will be there on the other side waiting for you. This I know 100%. All you have to decide in this moment is who you want to be when you reach your father on that side, and you will know what to do today. That's all I told her. And I don't even know what she chose to do, but I do think that it goes back to that, having a little bit of faith in people and knowing that should you choose, we will be on the other side of any bridge we don't burn. And I think that's basically what you were saying in terms of relationship suicide. Just don't burn the bridge, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With that, we'll close. We hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. We hope that you consider yielding. And And thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Strong Island, for hosting us. And Lori, I love you.
Peace.
Peace out.
As a promise. You promised. All right. Until next time, farewell.